Welcome everybody, and welcome to this latest video discussion as part of the RICS Tech Partner Programme. My name is Andrew Knight and I've been with RICS for over 11 years now. I sit within the directorate that looks at standards, regulation and thought leadership, and my role is to look at the whole effect of data and technology right across the built and natural environment. With over 130,000 members working worldwide, right across the property life cycle and right across the different asset types of land, residential, rural, commercial real estate, alternatives and infrastructure. It's a huge area and a huge opportunity for positive effect using data and technology. And today I'm really happy to have a couple of people from our partners, PIP, join us today, Tim and David. So please do come and join me on the call.
Hi, Andrew.
Hi, great to talk to you both. Now, I always like to start, before we get into the bits and bytes and the kind of the issues around the technology and the opportunities, is to do a bit of a kind of a personal piece about a bit of backstory and origin story of PIP. So perhaps, Tim, if you could start to give us a bit of an origin story and a bit of backstory on your experience in the market and how PIP came about.
Thank you. Well, after your introduction, I'm pleased to say I've been a member of the RICS for 32 years now, I think, and originally as a land agent, but more recently as an estate agent. And I guess PIPS came about out of frustration. When I stopped selling houses 3 or 4 years ago, I was frustrated by the time that was taken to exchange a property. When I started selling houses, I'd throw the file, when we agreed a sale, I'd throw the file in the corner of the room on the floor, and we'd expect a typed letter within 28 days asking for our account because it had exchanged. And that was the sum of our deal chasing in those days. Obviously, it wasn't the case when I finished, and I was getting upset, I guess, by buyers and sellers falling out. They were hating each other by the end of the process. And yet it was nothing to do with the personalities involved. It was the process that was letting them down. And so yes, I had a bit of time to stop and think, and I've been getting property information forms done and solicitors instructed when I was instructed, but I wasn't using that to my client's advantage. And so I started discussing this with a conveyancing solicitor, and we said, yeah, we should be putting this information available to everyone from day one of marketing. And so that's when we got introduced to David Sandeman, as he hosts a lot of titles, and I'm sure he'll cover that in a second. And from that, PIPS was born.
Indeed. Well, moving across to you, David, give us a bit of a backstory on your background and obviously your involvement in PIP as well.
Thank you. Yeah, during the 80s, I was buying and selling property in London and using auctions as a vehicle for both buying and selling. It all came to a crashing end at the end of the 80s when we had a very bad recession, property recession, worldwide recession. And one thing that had frustrated me for 6 or 7 years was that there was nowhere where auction results were hosted and you could see what things sold for in the past. Auctioneers they might have published some of their results in the back of the catalogue, but there's no central body. I came up with the idea with a couple of colleagues that we would attend the London auctions literally with a clipboard, write down what he sold for and produce a list which we would then fax out every evening after every London sale, which would give the address, a short description of the property and the price it achieved. And if it didn't sell, the auctioneers were generally happy to tell us what the available figure was, i.e. the reserve. This became very popular, started in 1990, May, and within 2 years, we started providing services for auctioneers, fax back of auction results, etc., etc. And by 1995, we'd started an online website called eigroup.co.uk, whereby you could go in and look at the results for the auctions and crucially search properties coming up for auction by address and type, and also the results. And 17 years ago, we were approached by an auction house who said, we've got a real issue in the industry, or in our company, whereby people want to see the legal documents and we're spending fortunes whilst they were charging somebody who wanted to see the legal documents £25 to cover the photocopying costs and the mailing, etc., to send out the legal packs. It wasn't efficient. Could we set up a document room for each lot, and so that people could register to view that property, the document room, read the documents, and crucially, when a new document was added, they'd be notified of it, and the auctioneer could see what documents are in. And the auction passport system was born, and that's really the nemesis of where we started with it, and it's grown to big numbers today, which I'll go through later on.
Indeed, indeed. Well, I suppose we probably need to do a separate video for our younger viewers to explain what a fax is, but it's it's fascinating to see how things have moved on. And I guess it's probably interesting to probably now focus on what PIP actually does in terms of you've talked about a lot of the kind of issues and problems that need solving. And I suppose it's ironic to think that if we think of the kind of big corporate M&As, the concept of a data room has been around a long time, hasn't it, in terms of providing that information in a secure kind of situation to help people look at those very large deals. And clearly we need a similar concept for smaller private treaty or indeed auction type situations. So perhaps Tim, could you give us a sense of what actually is PIP? What does it do and who does it do it for?
PIP gives estate agents the ability for every property that they're instructed on to open a data room, and in that data room, the estate agent, the seller, and the seller's conveyancer, if instructed, can post documents. That means that the seller can start to collate and display. And then the agent who has control of the data room and access to it can display a PIP link so that potential buyers can see this information before they offer. So what we're trying to do is not only speed up conveyancing, because those documents are all together and ready for the buyer and the buyer's conveyancer when the sale's agreed, but it's also looking to try and remove the wastage, which is the horrendous fall-through rate, which the industry almost accepts or certainly works with today. And so that's our three things are speed up conveyancing, reduce the fall-through rate, and hopefully win instructions for the agents.
And from your point of view, David, what we've talked a lot about the kind of things that it is solving, but what are you seeing in terms of customers telling you about how better this works for them in terms of outcomes?
So in the auction environment?
Well, both the auction environment and private treaty as well.
If document rooms if the legal pack wasn't available before an auction's offered for lot, the lot really can't sell because you just don't know what you're buying, and the speed at which it's delivered to the potential buyers is very quick, so they can spend time going through the documents and being happy with it. I mean, I liken it to the motor trade. You wouldn't go down to a second-hand car dealer and buy a car without make an offer on a car without looking at the service history, the logbook, the MOT. Why then are you happily to go to a estate agent, offer hundreds of thousands of pounds without even seeing, is a planning permission valid? Has there been a dispute with a neighbour? All those things which materially affect your decision, the sooner they are upfront, the more you can make a better balanced decision as to value and whether you want to buy it or not. And the auction world has shown this time and time again. People are happy to buy, having seen and had their lawyers inspect the legal pack. And it's crucial in that buying decision. And they are doing this before they make the offer, before they bid, rather than waiting till after the event.
Indeed. And you mentioned you had some sort of stats on the auction piece,
indeed.
Did you, David?
Yeah, sure. I'll just share my screen. Okay. Well, as you can see, first started as showing on the screen in May 2007. It was with Barnum Marcus, actually.
Right.
So Andrews Robinson auction. Since then, over 1.1 million people have registered for an auction passport so that they could see at least the legal documents for at least one lot that our auctioneer clients were offering, which is currently about 60% of all lots use this system. The others, such as Barnum Marcus, Allsop, and others, do have their own legal document system. Almost 54,000 new people have come to the market this year looking at legal documents, and that's 460 a day. It just shows how popular this is in an area of the property industry which accounts for less than 1.5% of all transactions. These people are looking at legal documents prior to making a bid or an offer on the property. And usage stats, nearly 400 auctioneers have used our system, and 250,000 lots have at least one document uploaded. Total number of lots, so we provided an auction, the document room for over 250,000 lots, and we've had a total of 2.6 million documents uploaded, available for view, and this is a staggering figure, over 33 million documents, God knows how many pages that is, have been downloaded. Now go back to pre-2007, they were being photocopied and sent out in the post. I mean, the industry's saving a huge number of trees here. 134 documents, I think. Barnum Markers was the most active when they were using us. They've recently gone over to their system, and 2.6 million documents downloaded just for them. So what we're seeing here is a real appetite by the buying public to see legal documents prior to bidding at auction. And what we're doing with PIPs is trying to encourage the similar attitude into the private treaty market.
Impressive, impressive. So, Tim, I mean, what does the kind of user experience feel like for PIP then, given that we're looking at that private treaty market as opposed to the auction?
I guess the best answer there is to give my own personal experience when I sold my house recently, just before lockdown. But we do as I say, not as I do. I'd actually committed myself to a purchase, and I had 3 months to market and sell my property, which I think we all know nowadays is quite a short time to even get the exchange through. So whilst talking to some agents trying to find some buyers, I also did the homework, did my property information form. I even got my searches done. I put all the information I knew about that house in my PIP vault. And kindly one agent locally introduced a buyer to me, and we sat across the kitchen table. And when we eventually agreed the price, I said that I'll accept that price on the basis of 2 weeks exchange. I didn't know they hadn't bought a house for 25 years. I didn't know they hadn't spoken to a solicitor yet. I didn't know they were going on a holiday to the United States for a week the following week. And I didn't know the solicitor they eventually instructed was going to take three days off the following week. But the memo sale clearly stated such and such a price agreed on the basis of a 2-week exchange based on the information in the PIP vault for that property. And there was a link in the memo of sale to go and see all that information. And one button, and you can download all that information. And so we left it to the lawyers. And in the second week, I was slightly surprised to be told that I think it was the fuel in the tank, wasn't at cost anymore. And I said, well, that's what the deal says. We lost 3 days on that, and I'm afraid to say we didn't meet our 2-week deadline. But we did exchange on the following day. So 2 weeks and a day, we exchanged contracts. So I think that's sort of the best example I can give of trying to speed the process up, because most people would be surprised to hear of 2 weeks and a day on an exchange. And so, yes, it's new technology for people. It's a little bit different, and I think there's a little bit of training, understanding, and talking about it. But I think in the time that we've been operating, trading standards, trying to bring in material information, and the home buying and selling group trying to get everything up front, and I think there's a massive move, and I think agents are accepting that they're going to have to go down this route. The nice thing about the PIP vaults is we believe any information is better than none.
Indeed.
So in other words, you can open a PIP vault and put one document in. Well, you're better than you were without it. And so that's what we try and encourage is agents can register for free for us, and we've even made PIP vaults free for 6-month trials for them. And even when we come to the commercial bit of charging, we're saying that we will do it on a success basis. So only when the agent's charged will we charge the agent on a successful exchange.
So Tim, but perhaps for those listeners who aren't so familiar with perhaps what trading standards and the home buying and selling group are up to, could you give us a bit more background? I know you and I often share calls around those kind of things, but it'd be interesting for our viewers to hear a bit more about what those activities are doing and almost what that means for the trajectory of kind of home buying and selling.
I think the home buying and selling group I think it's about 150 participants. So it's a totally informal group of people across the industry, whether it's EPC providers, mortgage providers, tech, as yourself, a complete cross-section, coordinated by Kate Faulkner and supported strongly by the ministry as well. And so what they're trying to do is identify areas that aren't working. So they have an upfront information group. They have a lot of different groups looking at it. You and I sit on the data standard group, and so everyone's trying to see how we can do it in the future and make it all digital and make it work. and they go into logbooks as well and that sort of thing. So that's what the home buying selling group is. It's a totally informal, voluntary group. Nobody's not included, but there's a limit at about 150, yeah. I think. They're not actively seeking others. So that's where the home buying and selling. And they're pushing for lawyers or solicitors to be instructed on instruction, and they're looking for a formal pack to come forward at the beginning stage. We're slightly more informal than that, really, that we're saying, come on, any information. Yes, we give the sellers automatically a property information form to complete and that sort of thing. So hopefully they can do that information. But if it's just going through their shoebox in the attic and putting the timber guarantees in there and the fencer agreements and that sort of thing, it just saves so much time later on. And we find that most sellers want to do something when they've instructed their agent. There's that sort of quiet period when the seller decides, right, I'm going to go with agent X. They appoint them, then it all goes quiet whilst they're doing the photos, floor plans, or whatever they're trying to do to get the marketing ready. And that's when the seller can be doing some work and often wants to. And in fact, the agent soon learns who their keen sellers are and who they aren't, because the keen sellers, want to get on and prepare for the sale.
Indeed, Tim. And from your perspective, David, with sort of feet almost in the private treaty market and obviously the auction market as well, what sort of trends are you seeing in the market? Obviously, demand is growing, but are you seeing a particular appetite increasing at scale now for this kind of approach?
Yeah, and certainly the sort of auctions have become quite sort of widespread, and the appeal with the portals is it's not just for dealers and developers. Now the general public are going in there, and we are seeing that more and more people are taking interest in the content of the legal pack. And of course, I always say the most important document could be the one which isn't there for whatever reason, but at least they're then saying, this is a leasehold flat, where are the management accounts for the last 3 years? I'm not going to buy them until I see them. So the same rules apply as in private treaty, but just get the information up as soon as you can, really.
Yeah. And Tim,
answering that same point, we had a meeting of agents the other day, 25 in a room, and some people saying, well, clients aren't used to seeing this. Do they really want to see this information? Will they look at the title? Well, I think David's statistics show that that the buying public do want to see that information. And even if it's, as David just said, then it's seeing that it's there gives them a certain confidence that things are going to come forward. If they see half of it's there, they know a certain confidence. If they see that just about every box has got a tick and it all looks complete, they might not read every document, but when they phone their solicitor and say, look, all this information is together, can I go and buy this property or whatever, how long is it going to take? I think it's a trust and a confidence soon builds.
Indeed, indeed. Tim, it was interesting that you used that phrase about the kind of the shoebox in the attic, because literally the digital twin of my property is a plastic box in the attic with fence agreements and building reg and planning permissions and a copy of the title deeds. What are your thoughts realistically about the fact that both residential but similarly commercial real estate transactions are so kind of document heavy at the moment? Everything about a property is still almost, dare I say, a Dickensian document rather than structured data. What do you see as the likely kind of trajectory of us getting more structured data? Because it feels like we're still very much dependent on PDFs of documents. I know I had to look up the Article 4 direction on my conservation area, and I found it on the website of the council, but it was a scan of a typewritten 1990s document with somebody handwriting the numbers of the houses on it. I mean, we're still in a kind of
I think it's going to be a slow process, and it's just such a huge process to take on. So I think my personal take on that is data is the way forward, and it's so exciting if and when it starts to go down that route. But I think nobody will have the capacity to go backwards. So I think we won't be digitizing past records. I think they will stay as quasi-frozen PDFs, and we'll have to work with them. But slowly, different areas of the home, the whole house ownership are looking to go digital. And as soon as it does, it will be quicker, and you can then interrogate it better, and it'll amazing things will come out of it once it starts to go data. But I think a lot of people think they're going digital or data driven when they actually scan their form. And so there's a lot of misunderstanding, I think. So a scanned form to us now is not data. It's yes, it is digital, but it's not a digital process. So I think there's a huge step digitally and for everyone to make that leap. But as soon as we start getting there, people are starting to fill in their property information forms digitally now, and things can start to happen then. So yeah, it's a long, slow, dare I say, a painful process, I think. Taking the public with us it takes longer than we all imagine.
Well, what are your thoughts on that, David, in terms of that transition to structured data?
I agree with it, and it's allowing people to make a more informed decision at the point of offering based on having seen documents. I mean, I think case in point, if I was looking at a property, saw a nice house, I'd read the the property information form, and if I saw it was on a septic tank, I'd say, I'm probably not going to buy it. I'd rather know about that when I just seen the house and looked at it than 5, 6, 8 weeks down the line when I get a report on time from my lawyer. So you do know it's on a septic tank, don't you? I could have known that 8 weeks before and said, no, not interested. Just previous experience with them.
Indeed, indeed. As a final kind of hopefully optimistic question in terms of adoption of this kind of technology and adoption of data in general, what do you see as the barriers? Are they technical, behavioral? What do you think is going to stop this kind of process moving hopefully as quickly as possible? Maybe Tim, I could start with you on that.
The answer to your question, Andrew, I think is behavioral, because it's available today. Any agent in the country can sign up to this. So yes, we've got to tell them, and they won't all have heard of us yet. But I think it's just getting it in their process. Every agent has a process when they take on a property to market, and we've got to be on that list. And so what we're finding from our marketing perspective is the larger corporates are fascinated by this space and watching it closely. Obviously, changing their process across the whole country is slower and more cumbersome. And I think it's the smaller, medium-sized local independents that are adopting, our first adopters, and that's where we're finding the real take-up is at the moment.
So, David, would you agree? Is it behavioural, or are there still some technical or structural things?
I think it is behavioural. We've always done it this way. Why should we change? It's worked perfectly. But if you want to make a quantum leap to dramatically reduce the time it takes to get an exchange, subject to change, but if everybody does it, do that, and have less fall throughs, it is the way ahead. It is the real big breaks in the industry, stopping more transactions happening more quickly.
And indeed, and I suppose almost back to that point around kind of structured data, we shouldn't let, I always forget the phrase, the perfect be the enemy of the good. If we can get good documentation, even if it is scanned documents, if they pertain to the issues that are going to make transactions move more quickly, then that it probably is good enough in the short term, isn't it? Because if we can get those documents, even if they are just scanned, available much more quickly and upfront, that probably will provide most of what we need, arguably.
Yeah, and these documents are going to be required for a legal exchange of contracts and completion. So get them up front and let's get everything out in the open, because it could be you've lost the Fenstra certificate. Well, you could be 3 or 4 weeks trying to get, if it was done a long time ago, trying to get a replacement. So if you do find on day one of marketing, oh, we haven't got the certificate for the window installation, that's the time to be picking the phone up, not when you're holding up a chain and find that the company's gone bust and everything else. So
exactly.
Those practical points can tiny matters could cause it to delay by 3 or 4 weeks.
Indeed.
Then you get a broken chain and it all goes pear-shaped.
Indeed. So final question for you, Tim. Any immediate plans in your roadmap for enhancing what you do, or is it more spreading the message now to the market?
I think spreading the message has got to be number one for us as a business. There are developments, but I think our focus is to stay quite simple. Quite a lot of our development will be linking up to others who do other parts of the process, as opposed to, we don't want to try and reinvent the wheel of areas that other people do. Yes, getting the forms done correctly and simply and into a digital form, and probably maybe bringing searches in at that early stage is certainly where the home buying selling group is pushing a lot of people, and it certainly worked for me personally, because I had a part of the draft contract, I had documents there that someone could come and buy. as simple as that. So those are our steady developments, but I think linking with others as part of the process, and as you say, spreading the message is what we're about at the moment.
And indeed, I think it's an important point, that sense of interoperability, to use the jargon, that what we don't want in the property sector is lots of different applications that can't talk to each other and integrate. I don't think that will be positive either, will it? So,
well, as one kind supporter of ours, Ed Mead, was saying the other day, there's so much chat about what documents we can put up front, but nobody's actually talking about where they can go and whether they can be displayed, and that's us. Do you know what I mean? So we're if anything the other way. We're not saying you must have these documents. We're saying these are the sort of documents you might want to display. Here's where you put them in, and people can come and see them.
Indeed. Well, it's been fascinating to hear both your background and story and what you're doing in, as I say, both the private market and the auction market. But for today, thanks very much, both David and Tim, and I look forward to catching up with you again soon.
Thanks, Andrew.
Thank you very much, Andrew.